Prior to going into handing over to Derrick, who will chair our closing session, I think there are some important people being our sponsors that we really need to highlight, and this will be done while Derrick gets his team together for the closing session. Thank you again for a very good session.
I'm not sure how many of you realize you have been sitting here for what, 7 hours, you know, one chair, but it has been a remarkable experience, a wonderful experience, very, very informative. And of course, you know, we see that Chris and his team has actually done a great job bringing together all this information for us. But all good things must come to an end. And as we used to say the olden days, that we're saving the best wine for last. So we're about to close the session. What is the replacement for arbitration week? And we have a number of persons who will be joining us and helping us through it. We have Miss Diane Edwards, and we'll have the vote of thanks by Mr. Dean Barros. And that, before he speaks, I'll introduce Dean for those who do not already know him. So in a few minutes, we'll hear from Diane Edwards, the president of JAMPRO, our principal face, if you wish, on promotions, investment promotions in Jamaica. She is the face, and perhaps the representative. We can't, if we think of local investment and export promotion, her name comes first to Jamaicans. And it's not unlike that many of you from overseas would have in fact known of her as well. She's a phenomenal manager and leader. She has come to JAMPRO from Jerry and Nephew, and I'm not sure if my heart is broken because JAMPRO's gain is Jerry and Nephew's loss, and I have a very special place in my heart for Jerry and Nephew. But it's the experience I think she brings, the knowledge of industry, the knowledge, of course, of what it means to work in these difficult times, and of course the recognition that as she performs her work and as she encourages others to do what they should be doing, invest in exporting, there will be disputes and we need ways of reconciling them and managing them. So in a few minutes, I'll call upon her to lead us to say what she should say to bring these proceedings to an end. After Diane speaks, we'll call upon Mr. Maurice Stoppi, who is, without any question, the Dean of ADR in Jamaica, both as a practitioner and as a mentor and as a scholar, you know, and as an innovator. I mean, some of the things that Maurice has done, you know, is simply remarkable, and we trust that the broader industry, the broader practice is picking up on it. The promotion, for example, of using adjudication as the essential mode of settling small disputes in complex contracts is something that is promoted, that is written on, is taught, is encouraged, and is pretty much the authority on. Maurice has had, as you would expect, a whole host of national honors in Jamaica and abroad. He holds the Order of the Holy Cross from His Holiness, Pope John Paul II. He's a centenary medalist of the Institute of Jamaica. He is a command of the Order of Distinction from Jamaica, and the list goes on and on. I think his greatest honor, however, must be the great affection that in which he is held in the hearts of most arbitration practitioners in Jamaica. And we'll call upon Maurice in a little while. Maurice's experience, of course, principally is that of a chartered surveyor, but he has been at the forefront of dispute resolution for the longest while. And of course, after Maurice, we will call upon my dear friend, Mrs. Dancia Penn, who is remarkable in every way. I don't know how I could effectively communicate it. She's taught every aspect of her profession. She has been a court of appeal judge. She has been an attorney general. She's an acting and deputy governor. She has been a minister. The list goes on and on and on, you know. But of course, from our perspective, that she has been a stalwart in not only in litigation and dispute resolution, but in promoting arbitration, especially the last several years. And many of us owe her a great deal of gratitude for what she has done and is in fact doing. My own part, of course, I bask a little bit in the glory, because Dancia and I were at university and law school together. So that's my claim to fame. But of course, we will ask her to help to close these proceedings. Now, after our colleagues have spoken, I'll come back, of course, introduce you later to Dean. So I'll start now by asking Dan, if Dan will come on, please.
Yes, I'm on, Derrick. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for those kind words. Very kind of you, and Ray nephew, of course, and all its expressions in the Appleton Estate range have a very, very close relationship to my heart and my throat. I feel like I am standing here really with at a disadvantage, speaking to all these experts in global and international law. And I just wanted to say good afternoon to all of you. I hope you've had a very rewarding day. I've been looking at the chat, and from the comments that I've seen, people have really found this a very rich and rewarding experience. We at JAMPRO know that ADR is really something that we have to embrace as a country and as a region, because I think for us, any kind of business that we attract to Jamaica wants to know that resolution of disputes is high on the agenda, that we are a modern region in terms of the way we approach disputes, and we respect resolution of disputes, and we are modern in our approach to it. And that really means that in this period of post-COVID, which I'll come back to in a minute, you know, we have got to embrace the virtual world. I'll come back to that in a minute, but I just wanted, first of all, to applaud the efforts of the Jamaica International Arbitration Center, because I think Dr. Malcolm has done a fantastic job, he and his team. This is the third year that we have been involved in this conference, and we continue to be really impressed with the development, the professionalism, and the number of global thinkers that JAIAC has been able to assemble for this event. We think it's really taken the whole ADR conversation to a higher level in the Caribbean. We also feel that what Dr. Malcolm has been able to do in pivoting to a one-day virtual conference has shown really his response to the challenges of the times, because we are all in a challenging time and we have got to embrace change. And I think, to be very honest, to my Caribbean colleagues, not those here represented, but the broader Caribbean colleagues, we don't see a quick and eager adoption of modern practices. And I think that that really is what is holding us back as a region from really embracing the potential that we have. The brain power we have in this region is phenomenal and equal to any region of the world. But we need to embrace modern technology and modern approaches to doing business. So in offering these few closing remarks, I wanted to say that in terms of the virtual world, you know, our new best friends at JAMPRO are Zoom, Microsoft Teams, and GoToMeetings. We have no way, and maybe Skype, we have no way to operate without that. Without that, our whole operation from work at home experience would have been a disaster. Because of those platforms and the one we're on now, Zoom, we have been able to maintain work from home, maintain a level of productivity that I think anybody would envy. What COVID-19 has done is really forced us all to rethink our business models and to reevaluate which services we can offer digitally. I think the whole question of arbitration and mediation that WIPO has been developing online is critical to this. And the session on innovation this afternoon was particularly apropos to that, and the last session in pointing the way ahead. One of the most interesting studies we have seen recently, done by Fortune magazine of global CEOs, revealed that the opinion of 51.1% of the CEOs surveyed said that business travel will never, never return to its former levels. What that means is that for all our professions, for investment promotion, for the legal profession, for arbitrators, for any kind of professional, we are going to see a massive reduction in face-to-face interaction and people getting on planes to do business. They will do it for tourism, but business means that we are all going to have to embrace online opportunities. And what's great for the Caribbean is that we have the opportunity to work with North America in the same time zone and to deliver services in a way that they also culturally accept, and that shows cultural affinity with the way North America does business. So we have a fantastic nearshore opportunity in the Caribbean, and this is what I expect us and JAIAC to embrace. And I'm very proud to see that JAIAC has embraced this and is working towards developing. What we have to do in terms of the government is to really reinforce the telecommunications back, because the vulnerabilities of that backbone, and I think Chris was a victim of it today, the vulnerabilities have been revealed. So we really have to focus on how can we develop our value-added services and our bandwidth to broadcast those services and to serve the world. There's a huge opportunity to both our SMEs, our exporters, and our investors of having a robust ADR mechanism which people can access online at any point in time of day or night. So this is where we think the transformation has to go. In Jamaica, we have embarked on a huge transformation program, which we call the Business Environment Reform Agenda. And we are projecting to get into the top 10 ranking in the Doing Business report. And one of the critical elements of that is the whole question of resolving disputes. So we really congratulate JAIAC. We think that this has been a tremendous success today, and I know that you've had over 500 people subscribed, which is phenomenal. We think this is a very exciting area for us to use our Caribbean expertise and leverage our expertise to become a true hub for international arbitration. So we really wish you continued success in this endeavor, and we pledge the continued partnership of JAMPRO in building new dispute resolution business for Jamaica and for the Caribbean. So thank you very much for inviting us, and we will continue to be an ardent supporter of JAIAC. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, colleagues, I will call upon the person who would call over their leader in the ADR environment. Maurice, will you come and give the close remarks, please?
Well, that's good, good. Well, thank you very much, Derrick, for those very kind words of introduction, none of which I really deserve, but I thank you nevertheless. The concept of having such a conference is to the great credit of the Institute, the Jamaican Institute of International Arbitration, and it will serve as a template, as Diane was saying just now. I think it will serve as a template for future activities, not just here, but in the wider range of the Caribbean. Regrettably, the technology did not extend today to satisfy Pat Chiltnam's desire for a cup of Blue Mountain coffee. If we could have sent that by virtue through the computer, we would have done so, but we were prevented from doing that. We've had a wonderful session, wonderful meeting. I've learned an enormous amount from just listening to some of the best brains and the most agile, active practitioners in the process of arbitration. Before I go too far, I would like to express some personal thanks, if I may, to our friends from Malaysia who are with us today. The JAIAC, in its beginnings, when we were thinking about putting things together on a formalized basis in Jamaica, which was one of my dreams from perhaps 20 or 30 years ago, we received a great deal of support from our friends Sandra and his cohorts from the Republic of Malaysia. And for that, we are really very grateful, and we hope that that cooperation will continue, and hopefully we can eventually make it into a two-way system of mutual support. The other thing that I was absolutely fascinated by was the discussion on force majeure, because as a practicing arbitrator over quite a long time, this force majeure thing comes up, and it's to my great amusement to listen to jurists trying to persuade me or whoever they're pleading their case in front of the exact meaning of the force majeure concept. We have a rough idea what it means. I think most people do, including lawyers, of course. And perhaps one day there will be an international agreement on the precise meaning of that term. But I really have to congratulate also John Rooney, who was able to conduct his section with probably the foremost practitioners of the law, such as Edgardo and Rose Ramel, who I thought were absolutely wonderful presenters. Now, the next thing I wish to say, without taking up too much of the time of the conference, because I know we're almost at the end, is this question of adjudication. And again, I'm very, very happy to see it, first of all, as an item on our agenda, and secondly, that there's so much interest in the concept of adjudication, because it really goes to, well, first of all, let me say that it's something that I've been personally pushing, and I hate to use that word, it sounds madly commercial, but I have been trying to promote the concept of adjudication for many, many years. And when I first started in thinking about how people react in terms of disputes and why do we have disputes, I then turned my thoughts to dispute avoidance, which I think is a very, very important aspect of arbitration, mediation, and ADR in general. I believe that the avoidance of a dispute is almost, if not just as important as the settlement of the dispute itself. But perhaps that could be left for another discussion, another debate. But what I did find was years ago when, as I said before, I first started in this activity, I found that adjudication, or the reliance on a third-party neutral to provide instant decisions which were upheld by a more authoritative body, was really what the people wanted. That's what they're looking for. They were not looking for esoteric debates on the meaning of strange legal expressions or precedents of that kind. What they wanted was a quick decision, because time is money, to quote a cliche, and because in some cases one had, certainly in the third world context of Jamaica, in which we practice here, I found quite often that in all matters of disputes, whether it's litigation or ADR, the question of who has the deepest pocket usually has the greatest chance of success, which to my ethical upbringing and background is totally foreign. I reject that concept. And so where the industry itself, this is a dispute resolution industry, where it itself can produce a system of equity in terms of providing solutions to people's problems and people's disputes, that is to be preferred rather than a system of whoever has the strength, perhaps one might call it, to appeal a decision or delay, as they used to have in the United Kingdom. If you remember, under the old Arbitration Act, there was a clause about stating a special case. Some arbitrators may remember that, the practice in the UK. And what was inserted in the English law as a method of solving a problem turned into a mechanism for those who could afford it to delay the proceedings. And so every time a case was referred to, perhaps the House of Lords, for them to state a special or give their decision on a special case meant perhaps one of the parties has gone bankrupt in the meantime. So I'm very, very fascinated by the quality of debate and everything else in terms of the participants in that discussion on adjudication. Mediation comes into the same category, really, I think, and we had some excellent contributions under Sean Henriquez's guidance to do with the use of mediation as a part of ADR. And on the question of should commercial parties jettison the court, as a non-lawyer, as most people do know, I'm not a lawyer, even though it's one of my great regrets that I never had the opportunity to study that particular esoteric branch of human culture. Should commercial parties jettison the court? I wondered to myself, why is this an issue? I mean, how can it be possible to talk about living in a well-regulated ethical society without, as was practiced by our ancient forebears, the ancient Greeks, who established the concept of democracy and also a system to support that? Surely the removal of the court itself from the process would be detrimental, in fact, undermining the system of democracy that we subscribe to. And so without delaying the issue too far, I just want to thank all of the participants. I know that Professor Burrowes is going to do the job much better than I could possibly think of, but I do wish to express my personal thanks to all the participants. I've learned an enormous amount, and thanks, of course, to the organizers. And we hope that this will be the first of many. Thank you.
Thank you, Maurice. Thank you very, very much. Colleagues, I'm not sure if you know, but among members of the armed forces, and I suspect this is so for pretty much all uniform groups, there's a special bond among those who enter together, who enter in the same squad. We speak of them as our squaddies. And so I have the great honor now to call upon the most distinguished of my squad, the Honorable Dancia Penn, to give her closing remarks. Dancia, please.
Derrick, good afternoon to you and good afternoon to everyone. Warmest greetings from here in Tortola in the Virgin Islands, the British Virgin Islands. We date ourselves, Derrick, but we're honored to be part of your squad. And it truly is a pleasure to take part in this very important conference this afternoon. My dear friend, Dr. Christopher Malcolm, has very kindly placed me at this place to have, in effect, the last word. And I'm delighted to be here and to be in this particular position. But I want to begin by thanking Chris and the Jamaica International Arbitration Society and everyone for organizing, and as I've said, for inviting me to be part of it. As is known, I am a great supporter of the ADR processes, all of them, and of their development in the region. And I spend a fair share of my time these days in that cause. And participating in the annual Jamaica Week, Arbitration Week, has been an important part of my program for the last few years. And this year, thanks to COVID, Chris and the team have taken it to a higher level. virtually. I'm particularly pleased to be part of this panel with, yes, the doyen of arbitration, not only in Jamaica, in the Caribbean, Mr. Maurice Stoppi. It's great to see you, Maurice, and Mrs. Diane Edwards. And let me say at the outset that I concur, and I concur unreservedly, with all the comments that Maurice and Diane have made on this closing panel. And I also have to say that so much of what panelists said, this very stellar panel of speakers have said today in the course of this conference, I agree with. The comments that Alexandra Johnson made, Carlos Concepcion, and Pat Cheltenham in the panel prior to this, I agree entirely. And in fact, much of what they said, I was intending to say as I now speak. But Derrick, I would really like to couch my closing remarks really as a quick look at the future in this new world, and the future in what I term this new and evolving new world. In short, what I see is positive. What I see is a bright and an increasingly bright future for dispute management in the new world and in the new evolving world. Challenges there are, certainly there are, but challenges are opportunities, I believe, and it is on the opportunities for us in the Caribbean in particular on which I choose to focus as we close. There are many inherent opportunities, to my mind, for us in the Caribbean, in this new and evolving world. And I cite our diversity in our legal systems. We have civil law jurisdictions, we have common law jurisdictions. Diversity in language, English, French, Spanish, Dutch, Papiamiento, and others. Geographic diversity. Some countries are on continents, Guyana, Suriname, Belize. Many of us are islands. And within the islands, we have great diversity in size, in culture, in race, in gender, in ethnicity. We have Cuba, we have Jamaica, we have the smaller islands in the Eastern Caribbean, where I hail from, for example. We also have great diversity in our economies, and that is a factor of great significance. And in fact, much of the theme today picked up that economic diversity that is part of us. We also have a region where I think it's fair to say that women in particular have been very active and have much facilitated, in my view, institutionally in being part of the development of our ADR processes. But specifically now, what I'm going on to say, I really take from what the Honorable Minister of Justice, Mr. Delroy Chuck of Queen's Counsel, a dear friend of 40 odd years, he tells me, Derrick. I take my cue from some of what the minister said today. He spoke and he gave illustrations which Alexandra Johnson picked up in her presentation of the very serious delays in the justice system and with restorative justice in Jamaica. Pat Cheltenham picked that up, and both Minister Chuck and Pat Cheltenham could have been speaking for many jurisdictions in our region. Delays in the justice system, delays in litigation are a reality. And those delays have been exacerbated by the coronavirus and the COVID-19 crises. And for those of us, and none of us is exempt from it in the Caribbean, for those islands which have experienced hurricanes, we know very well about that. In 2017, I lived through 2 Category 5 hurricanes in a short 2-week period. And those factors create a number of legal issues, a number of legal consequences, and heighten the need, in my considered view, for more ADR and for more engagement in the ADR process and processes. But I wish to focus most of what I would say on the area of mediation, because I think in many respects, it is probably the easiest and the most cost-effective of the measures that can be employed by a wide range of users in the Caribbean. Recently, and this is post-COVID, what was referred to as concept note number 2 on the effect of the 2020 pandemic on commercial contracts was published by the British Institute of International and Comparative Law. It is essentially a call by several senior judges in the United Kingdom, former judges primarily, like Lord Neuberger and Lord Phillips. And it is essentially a call for a breathing space in dealing with disputes. The call is really for parties to mediate and not litigate. It is a call for parties to negotiate solutions to contracts affected by the pandemic, and I would add the hurricanes and natural disasters, and to seek to renegotiate and restructure disputes rather than relying on hard contractual rights and contractual principles. It is a call also to seek to bring contracts to a fair, balanced, and equitable end, if an end there has to be. And it's also a call to encourage parties to resort to the various ADR mechanisms. Specifically in mediation, I believe that we as practitioners, we as persons engaged in the field, we can and we must contribute greatly to encouraging parties to mediate and to not litigate. We can advise and seek to encourage parties to the known and proven benefits of mediation, the saving of time and costs, the relatively fast pace, all of which is now facilitated by virtual proceedings. And Diane spoke so well and so correctly to the importance of the virtual proceedings and the way that we have to improve our capacity to facilitate virtual proceedings. Mediation too, we should and can advise, helps to preserve relationships, which are so very important, both in economic and social terms, especially in our region. The saving of costs. I mentioned already the preservation of relationships. The opportunity that mediation provides for open, safe, confidential airing and expression of points of view and feelings. I was myself yesterday as counsel in a mediation here. Our mediator was not a lawyer. He was a retired professor from the University of the West Indies, actually. And it was very important in that process. It was a matter involving relatives, but each of them was able, in the confines of a room, to sit down and very freely and very openly say what was on their heart and what their issues were. And I believe in terms of the development of our countries and the resolution of building stronger and better societies, it is important that we promote and facilitate such opportunities for people. Mediation too, we ought to advise and seek to promote the fact that mediation helps parties to arrive at solutions that they want and resolutions that they want, instead of resolutions that are imposed by a court or by an arbitral tribunal or some other body. We also should help to convince people of the importance of being able to chart their own agreement, their own resolution to their matter, devoid of having to rely on judicial precedents and tight rules of court, the rules of arbitral institutions, and so on. The freedom to arrive at really a solution that allows them to continue to carry on their relationship, be it business, be it commerce, be it whatever it may be. And I think, Derrick, it is incumbent on us to promote mediation as a relationship management exercise, as distinct from a hard contractual management exercise. On a sort of wider level, we all know that the models of truth and reconciliation commissions, the truth and reconciliation process has worked well in some countries. And I believe that in appropriate cases, we ought to also promote the truth and reconciliation process. And I believe that in the Caribbean, we're well placed to do that. I will not repeat what both Alexandra and Pat and Carlos and others have said about the importance of sensitizing lawyers, the legal profession as a whole, judges, the judiciary, and others, because I am of the belief that persons other than lawyers have a critical role to play in promoting ADR in our region. In the nature of our societies and our economies in the region, there are a number of, especially our social and economic structures, there's some particular areas in which effective dispute management will be increasingly required and will be increasingly important. I will not refer to all. I believe I must be nearing the end of my time. But some of these areas include climate change. And climate change is an extremely important matter that we in the Caribbean region, and indeed globally, have to engage in and become more sensitized to, I believe. ESG, environmental, social, and governance issues, all of these are key factors in measuring the sustainability and the social impact of investments. Again, given the nature of our economies, substantially tourism-based, financial services-based, though there are other areas, I pay closer attention to ESG. Food, food security, and the supply chains. We saw that very actively during COVID, where even medical supplies destined from the United States for here in the Virgin Islands, and I believe for other jurisdictions in the Caribbean, I think Barbados, were intercepted. And as we continue in this new world and in this new and evolving world, I think that whole matter of supply chains for food, for medicine, for other essential goods, because we are a region that imports more than we export. I think we need to pay particular attention to those areas and to create the ADR capacity throughout our region and among peoples to be able to deal with those matters. I can say more, Derrick, but I believe that I am at the end of my time. There is the area of energy in which we also have to pay specific attention and build capacity. We know about Guyana, and I've been involved to some extent with that effort and what's happened with oil, the discovery of oil there. Here in the Virgin Islands and jurisdictions like the Cayman Islands, where our economies are very significantly based on financial services. We are highly involved in foreign direct investment to many countries in the world. We need, and I am not speaking xenophobically here, I believe that the world is one place and that it is important that we build the capacity. But within the Caribbean, and Diane said this, within the Caribbean, we have capacity and we need to continue to build that capacity. We cannot be xenophobic. We cannot sit on any laurel. We have to continue to train, to retrain, and to remain current, and to be able to perform at the levels and to the requisite standards. So it's been a wonderful day. I commend all the presenters on the very interesting and important range of ideas and thoughts and suggestions that have been presented. Chris, I commend you on your ongoing tireless efforts for ADR in the region. And I commend all of you for what you continue to do. And I certainly am a very happy and committed part of the process. Thank you all very kindly.
Thank you very much, Dancia. Colleagues, you've had the best wine in these capstone discussions that bring us to the end of the presentation. And I'm sure you would wish for us to say thank you, not only to these closing speakers, but to all who have participated, to those who have made presentations, who have led discussions, to Chris and his team who have provided administrative support for all of this. And you have selected to represent us in this discussion, Mr. Dean Barros. For those who do not know, and I can't imagine, well, you're not from Jamaica, you may not know, but for those of us from Jamaica do know Dean as a committed supporter of ADR. He's a chartered quant surveyor, a project manager, an adjudicator, and an arbitrator. And you'll, of course, seen the trend, of course, maybe Maurice was the one who started this, of our quality surveyors, chartered court surveyors becoming adjudicators and arbitrators. Dean has enormous experience, tremendous experience in the built environment, going to almost four decades. He's worked in the public and the private sector, both in Jamaica and the United Kingdom. He's a founding partner of the firm, Jamaican firm Burrowes and Wallace, chartered quantity surveyors and building economists. He's highly trained, deeply committed to his profession, and to his institutions that have trained him. He's an examiner at the University of Technology, and he is, as I said, one of our leaders in the arbitration profession in Jamaica. And I think he will represent us very well in conveying our gratitude to all who worked so hard to make today the success it has been. Dean?
Yes. Honorable Minister Delroy Chop, Minister of Justice, Madam Justice Ingrid Mankatel, Mr. Jose Entrada Faria, who represented the Secretariat at UNCITRAL, Professor Velma Newton, Mr. Derrick McKoy, Mr. Diane Edwards, Mr. Maurice Stoppi, Ms. Dancia Penn, and all the distinguished persons who brought greetings. It's my privilege to be asked to give the vote of thanks at the first Jamaica International Arbitration Center online conference, which I must say has been a resounding success. The topic, dispute management in a new world, could not have been more aptly chosen at this time. We can attest that we are experiencing the emergence of a new world, possibly hastened by the advent of the COVID-19 pandemic. But nevertheless, we must admit this singular event has altered the way in which we should be going about our business from now on. Today, we wanted to know Jamaica is as active as ever. The moderators, Mr. Milton Samuda, John Rooney, Karen Goff, Sean Henriquez, Caroline Hay, and Christopher Malcolm, and panelists which have been drawn from right across the world. They are all well informed and kept us riveted throughout the presentations. We all benefited immensely from their thought and what they had to say. We learned from the experiences of presenters practicing in some very interesting and far-flung places, and we really appreciate it, especially those who had to give up some of their sleep this morning. We received valuable insight into alternate dispute resolution methods, looking at the rules that are currently being worked on, especially those out of UNCITRAL. We were brought up to date with the latest advances and presentation methods in use. And in the end, we're encouraged to implement training for professionals entering this field. We're grateful to our sponsors who have supported this conference, and special thanks to the Jamaica International Arbitration Center, the Jamaica Chamber of Commerce, and our reliable and resounding organizing committee, especially to Dr. Christopher Malcolm, who is at the helm of the ship. To most of our attendees, to all of our attendees, to have contributed to make this event a success. It has been a pleasure seeing you in your interactions with our panelists and in our interactions with each other. And we hope you'll join us in our future events. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dean. Colleagues, I'm pretty sure the last word can't be mine. So is Chris around? Could you?
I am Derrick, but I did expect the last word to be yours.
I think we need to acknowledge how really impressed we are, indeed how satisfied we are in what you have achieved and what you and your team have achieved. We recognize, of course, that we were faced with the worst possible challenge. The COVID-19 pandemic and what it meant, and your plans for months and months, from last year, in fact, to get arbitration week, running. I had it in my diary, as I'm sure we all had. And then the realization, of course, that it would not happen. It was the deep disappointment. And to see you come from what must be the absolute depth of despair to get us this one-day workshop, which has kept us riveted. As I said, I've been been at my chair now going almost 8 hours, literally. We have, as we speak, 2/3 of our maximum attendees. We recognize, of course, a large number of them came from jurisdictions where at this point they should be in bed or waking up for work. We've done very well indeed. And this success must be clearly and unambiguously laid at your feet. I'm very happy with the proceedings. I'm very proud of your accomplishment. I wish you and the Institute every success. And I know, in fact, you'll lead us to greater and greater heights. Thank you very much, Chris. And colleagues and friends, Thank you very much for your participation. Dancia, my love, my squaddy, so happy to see you.
Thank you, Squaddy. Very best.
Goodbye, colleague.
Bye.
Bye.